So in this video I'm going to demonstrate making a couple different IDE cables. These are being made specifically for my IMSI 8080 or 8800 project, although you know cables are ubiquitous, so whatever you need to make them for. So I need a 50 pin male to male. I happen to have luckily a connector here. I don't know if this is a reclaim. I have reclaimed these before. They can be really difficult to get off old cables. They say you shouldn't do that. I've never had an issue doing it myself. Some things to keep in mind here. So this one doesn't have it. Often these connectors will have a little arrow molded into the plastic which points towards pin 1. However, none of these are going to have it. So it made a liar out of me. But I know for this cable I need a second connector on the other end in the same orientation as on this end. Which means I need this connector to go on here. If I can get this to feed through here, this is always the hard part, is getting the cable to feed through and not breaking the connector. The little retaining tab came loose there. So I know that I need this cable to be straight through with the same orientation on both connectors. They make specialty tools for crimping these. It's a bit spendy. I've got one. However, I find my little PanaVise here works just fine for this. I've had really good luck with the PanaVise crimping these, and the vise has 1,000 other uses, which just makes this, really a useful way to go. So typically I try to get the connector on as square as I can. And again, nothing says the end of the cable was cut square. Hold it crimped in my fingers and then tighten up a little bit until it just starts to bite, and then I can go ahead and slide it on in, get it centered here. It looks like it's coming out pretty straight, and then just simply tighten the vise. I've heard the clips on both sides catch. I've got a nice crimp on that. It looks nice and straight. I will attempt to shear off the rest of the wire here, just to get rid of this extra length. And that's really good enough for what I need. That will be absolutely fine. You want to be careful that when you cut that you don't have some wires left over that kind of jut out, which I actually have there. I'm sure there's a better way to do this. I've just done it this way for years. Let me look at that again. Yeah, I've got a couple of wires that didn't trim really well there. I'm just going to trim those down. Sometimes I'll take an X-Acto blade, if I can find the X-Acto here, and use it to trim them as well. And maybe I'll go ahead and try that here. Just flush the blade up. And just kind of walk my way down. And besides one wire, that got me a very nice cut. There's a single wire hanging loose there. Funny demonstrating this. I've never actually, I don't think, had that happen before. But there we go. That should get me the 50 pin cable I need for inside the altar. This cable will come to this printed circuit board in this orientation. How did those pins get so bent? Wow. Some days I have no idea how those got that bent. I don't remember pulling a cable off that crooked. But obviously I did. Some days, man. There's actually a bit of silkscreen on here, which gives me an indication of the direction that the notch needs to go. So this cable is going to come onto here like so. This goes off to the floppy controller, and now I need to make a floppy cable. And luckily, again, I had loose connectors here. Looking at these two, I suspect they're reclaim off just old PC floppy cables. It's hard to say with this one. Most of these are reclaim, where I've actually done the work to tear down an old cable and to get the connector open and off. I need to make a longer version of this cable. I don't need this center connector here. These are keyed. Make sure these are keyed in the same location they should be. And I want the pin 1 orientation to be the same. And luckily I have a huge roll, again found surplus, of ribbon cable. So this ribbon cable is going to go in here. Like so. I've got pin 1 the same orientation, and then it's just the same thing. Open this up enough to get it in there and get a light bite. Go ahead and slide it in. It looks straight and crimp. And again, I heard the ears latch. So there's one. Now it gets a little trickier to do because I've actually got to get around the cable here. He is going to go on. Be easier to slide him down from up here rather than take him all the way apart. I'm just going to slide him down the length I need. These don't need to be very far apart. In fact, the spacing on these two work pretty well. Orientation looks good. So this is where the hand tool comes in handy because it will squeeze from the outside. I don't have the luxury of the hand tool. I mean, I do. I have it over there, but I don't have it out where I can actually get at it. So I'm actually going to do this. And we'll see what we end up with. I filled it. Click on both sides. And that got us a nice crimp. The cable looks fine. I didn't tear it up. I wrapped it around the back here and then just crimped through the wire. That looks really good. Orientation's correct. Now we come down to this end of the cable. And it's going to come off that adapter PCB. So I do believe this guy was on. Now I'm confused. It must have been on this orientation. He's going to go on that way. The red mark in the cable goes towards pin 1. So this should be going to go on the end here. These are more delicate than they look. It's really easy to break the little ears off of them. I just want to get this spun around here. It looks pretty square. Get a bit of pressure. Get him slid in there. And seat it. Looks good. Go ahead and trim this up. Don't see any issues. This then goes on this board in this direction. We've got our 50-pin floppy to 34-pin converter for the FDC Plus. We've got the 2 floppy connectors. Hopefully I got that correct. And I did. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, it's absolutely fine. This should do what I need. We've now got, this was like a 6 or 8 foot cable before. We've not got good cable length. I've got enough to actually get over to the floppies and get them connected. So I'm happy with this. So there's a kind of a quick demo of crimping your own IDC cables. Not sure what else I can say here. I'll just recap. PanaVise is a great tool, great on the bench. You just saw another application for it. Rather than spend $40 on a hand crimping tool specifically for these, spend the money on the vise. Does a really good job. It served me well, and it's got a million other purposes. So anyhow, I'll end here, and we'll talk soon.